Has 4 votes. We will leave the roll open for the absent members. Thank you. We have Assemblymember Baker here, so we will proceed with file item 30 while we continue to wait for Assemblymember Stone. Good afternoon. This is, let me just call the item. It is AB 2263. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Senators. I'm pleased to present to you today AB 2263. This is a bill that closes a loophole in our state's Safe at Home program so that we can give its enrollees, who are our constituents, better protections from domestic violence and stalking that endangers their everyday lives. These are protections that come from this bill are ones that you and I already have, and our constituents who are victims of domestic violence and stalking do not. As you may know, the Safe at Home program is administered by the Secretary of State's office. It protects enrollees from their stalkers or others who intend to do them great harm through obtaining their home addresses from state government and official records. Individuals enrolled in this program are typically victims of domestic violence and also reproductive health care workers and patients. They are able to use, through this program, their post office box instead of their home address when they do official business, like registering to vote, enrolling their children in school, even getting first-class mail, getting a driver's license. This allows them to shield their home address from their stalkers. And while there are many protections provided by the Safe at Home program, there's one very big loophole that is endangering our constituents, and that is the availability of the address to become public at the clerk recorder or county assessor's office. Right now, a stalker can go to a clerk recorder or county assessor if the person they're stalking has title to property and quickly find out what their address is. What this bill does is it provides better information to the participants in the program for how to protect against that happening. It also provides enrollees with the ability to get their address that's obtained in this way down from the internet by being able to contact those who put it up there. And again, members, senators, we have this protection already for our private addresses. Our constituents who are victims of domestic violence and stalking do not. I'd like to just share briefly that the idea for this bill came from a constituent who is the victim of a very violent stalker. Domestic violence, her previous husband that she divorced. She wrote us a letter explaining how her stalker had threatened her life, considered her worthless, and was going to be coming after her, and she took great precautions in keeping her address from being public. She has no social media presence. She doesn't go out and about. She actually lives a very quiet and private life. She's an enrollee in the Safe at Home program, but she learned that her stalker could simply go to our county clerk recorder's office and find out where her address is, and that she has very little ability to take that address down from the internet. And so that's the person that inspired this bill. I think we have constituents like that in every one of our districts, and I'm grateful for your consideration. With me today is Asha Harris from the Sheriff's Association and additional witnesses from Partnership to End Domestic Violence.
Asha Harris on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association in support. We support this bill because it encourages public safety. These victims, they're already at risk to the public, and so we want to make sure that they are protected and that their predators are not able to access their private information through the county assessor's office. This bill also clarifies that the existing protections for crime victims and persons in sensitive employment positions will also have their safety and make sure that these protections are essentially all the way around. So for those reasons, we support this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
And also have Don Kepke from Crime Victims United.
Thank you. Dawn Kepke with McHugh, Kepke & Associates on behalf of Crime Victims United in very strong support of AB 2263. Many victims that we work with are not even aware, whether they're enrolled in the Safe at Home program or not, aware that such information can be found online. And for many victims that we've encountered, their offenders are quite resourceful, particularly DV victims, and are able to search out such information knowing where to look. We really think that this is a very smart measure, a very good measure that really is kind of a cleanup measure, if you will, that will help protect those victims, providing these options for them. The Safe at Home program is geared towards helping to maintain their privacy protections because of these situations. We really think that this is a smart, common sense measure. Really urge your aye vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kopke. Are there any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Any questions from my colleagues? I have a motion. Do I have a closing statement?
Thank you, members, for your respectful attention, and I respectfully ask your aye vote.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Baker.
It all works.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to Senate Appropriations. Jackson, Morlock, Anderson, Hertzberg, Leno, Monning. Monning, aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye.
2 votes, and we'll hold a roll. That takes us to item, well, where does it take us? Who is next? Assemblyman Dababny, welcome. Thank you for coming. I believe we'll start with item 37, Assembly Bill 2591.
Yes, we will.
And then you have one more. You have the floor.
Apologize for that. Mr. Chair, colleagues, I would say good morning as my script says, but I'll say good late afternoon. I'm here to present AB 2591, a bill that will further help consumers across our state transact specified insurance documents electronically. AB 2591 is a consumer and environmentally friendly bill that gives consumers the power to choose how they receive and retain their insurance documents. I reiterate, the power is up to the consumers how they would like to get these documents. Under this bill, consumers will be able to receive their insurance documents electronically only if they affirmatively opt into this delivery method after being informed of all their rights and options. Further, they can end electronic communications at any time at their pleasure. It is worth repeating that electronic delivery this bill authorizes is completely voluntary for policyholders. Further, consumer protections in this bill go farther than the current standards for traditional mail. For the most sensitive documents under AB 2591, an insurer has to demonstrate that the recipient actually viewed sensitive documents, which is not the case with traditional mail documents. No such equivalent exists, as I said, for paper documents. This is a huge new protection for consumers. UETA and e-sign are likely one of the most challenging and convoluted areas of law, and I appreciate the effort that the committee and the chairwoman and her staff has put into this bill to make it a better bill, especially on such short notice and with such a busy timeline. I fully accept the amendments restoring the sunset dates established by AB 1131 suggested in the analysis. Here in support of the bill today, I have Armand Feliciano from ACIC and Michael Gunning from PIF.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Armand Feliciano on behalf of the Association of California Insurance Companies. We are co-sponsors of the bill. Our members support the bill in part to respond to consumer demands accessing insurance documents online. We believe it's a well-balanced bill. We urge your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piscato.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Michael Gunning, Personal Insurance Federation. Also here in support, and Senator Wachowski, I know you were concerned about sensitive documents, and we've obviously taken that amendment. So we think this is a good bill for consumers and allows people that want to receive all those documents via email can do so, and hopefully urge your support.
Thank you, Mr. Gunning. Are there any other witnesses in support?
Maria Garcia with Greenberg-Traurig on behalf of State Farm Insurance in support.
Good afternoon. Sherry McHugh representing the Pacific Association of Domestic Insurance Companies in support. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Ted Angelo with the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Companies in support of the bill.
Steve Suchel, American Insurance Association, a co-sponsor and in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Vice Chair and members, Sabina Takar with the Consumer Attorneys of California, and we have an opposed unless amended position on this bill. We've been working with Assemblymember Dababneh on this, and we thank him for taking the committee's amendments. That resolves one of our two concerns with the bill regarding the sunset. The second issue that we want to work out with him over the summer is regarding the two categories of documents. Currently, the bill sets out two standards, one lower, one higher, and the more sensitive documents are under the higher standard. As the author mentioned, this is a very complicated area of the law, so we want to make sure that any document that would reduce the consumer's coverage or cancel coverage is in the higher category. So we'd like to continue working with him to make sure everything is properly placed. We commend the author for taking on this bill. It's very important as consumers like me start to prefer to have their documents online. It's an important change in the law that we need to update. However, we want to ensure that consumer protections are in place to ensure everyone actually gets their sensitive documents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Any questions from my colleagues? Senator Wieckowski.
I guess for the paper world, when we send somebody certified mail and they sign for it, we don't have a guarantee that they actually opened the envelope and read it. I mean, we know that they got it. So what's the akin for I mean, I was concerned about this, making sure that people get it. I don't know if they're going to read it or if they care to read it, but isn't this heightened signal that you actually got it and you opened it, you received it? Isn't that akin to a certified, receipt?
Exactly, and that's what the heightened protection does. The higher standard says that you log into the insurer's website with your password into your account and you can look at the documents. For example, my fiance was in an accident yesterday. I could go into his account and look at the documents for the declarations page in the website. So it's not simply in my email inbox, it's in a special area where I can go in and get the document. So the insurer can see, for example, if they send me a notice of cancellation, that I've looked at the document. So that's the intent, saying that the important documents are in that higher category.
Can I just touch on and I would like to say that I have appreciated working with the consumer attorneys on this, and I think Senator Wieckowski made an excellent point. One of the things we're struggling with is the matter we have a transition period in all the ways we do e-commerce. And when you look at from the way you sign your mortgage now to insurance transactions we've seen for annuities and life insurance, our constituents and these marketplaces consumers are demanding more ability to do things through e-signature and digital signature and being able to review documents on their smartphones rather than in a stack of papers like this. And so one of the things I think we're trying to struggle with is these comparisons between how things have been and how things are going to be. And when you look at this is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I think we're taking the necessary precautions. This is specifically to the point of having the tiers. This bill follows established guidelines from paper equivalence negotiations under SB 251 from 2013. I know we were colleagues that year, Mr. Wieckowski. You were probably involved with that on the Judiciary Committee. These classifications were negotiated and really have not been problematic. When you look at where we've been since then, if the opposition wants to go back and touch upon that, happy to have further discussions, happy to look at amendments in the future. We've not seen any specifically. But this bill is looking at e-delivery at a higher standard than we have anything for paper equivalence. And you can make that point, and I will actually probably use that in the future when talking about this bill. If someone has for paper mail an equivalency where they just sign an envelope, that's not proof that they read it. If you look at what we've done with this bill now, there is much more certainty that that person actually read the document in hand through this e-delivery method for those more sensitive documents than actual physical mail. So with that, I look forward to working with the consumer attorneys on this to go forward and address some of those concerns. I think we've shown good faith on the sunset, and Mr. Wieckowski, I appreciate the question on that.
You say moved it? Okay, the bill's been moved. Assemblyman Dababneh, would you like to make a closing statement?
I will put, in lieu of my closing statement, I'll just say I respectfully ask your aye vote.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, let's take roll for the motion as amended, for the bill as amended.
The motion is due pass as amended to the Senate floor. Jackson. Morlock. Morlock, aye. Anderson. Hertzberg. Leno. Moning. Wykowski. Wykowski, aye.
2-0 will hold the roll open. Thank you. Now you have another bill.
We have two more. Can I first do, we have another one, 2636 with my co-author Eric Linder. Can we do that quickly? That'll be a much quicker bill.
Did you say please?
Please.
Oh, sure.
Yo, if Mr. Linder will come up.
Oh, wait, what? Hold on, I've got, someone just threw a yellow flag down. Hold on. It's okay? Yeah, it's okay. Okay. All right, we're on.
Mr. Linder. You want to start?
Welcome, Assemblyman Linder. We are on item 40, Assembly Bill 2636. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. Today, Assemblymember DeBobne and I present a bill we've joint authored that modernizes the issuance of vital records in our state, while at the same time creating a greater customer protection and convenience. AB 2636 is a permissive bill that allows counties to offer a way for their customers to complete a request for vital records completely online by using a multi-layered remote identity proofing process. Currently, 41 states process requests for vital records as authorized by this bill using remote identity proofing. California, however, lags far behind its out-of-state counterparts because current law requires a separate notarized affidavit to identify the of identity to accompany any online requests for vital records. To give you an idea of how far we're lagging behind, California and Minnesota are the only two states that require a notarized statement for those who can't visit the county office to verify their identity in person. Locating and paying a notary is not only a huge obstacle for hard-to-serve populations, such as the homeless, military serving overseas, and the elderly, but as once a notary myself, I can say with confidence that our current system is not perfect, and it does not ensure the highest level of security. I was a notary for over 12 years, and I was trained to accept mere visual verification. If the face is matched, then they must be who they say they are. And this is particularly troubling, especially considering the fact that the business of producing fake IDs has become quite sophisticated and is highly likely that they can pass even the keenest of notaries. Further compounding the issue is that there's no uniformity in notary laws across the country. Currently, 32 states do not require any training whatsoever. Several states allow for witnesses and personal knowledge when claiming an identity without even showing an ID. And yet, vital records issuing agencies are forced to accept a notarized statement from any of these states. They have to still provide the records, even though they might not have the same scrutiny. AB 2636 offers an alternative that local agencies in California may utilize if they so choose. It gives local agencies the legal authority to utilize a remote identity proofing process in lieu of a notary, so long as they adhere to strict federal cybersecurity guidelines that were added to the bill in the Assembly Privacy Committee. This bill is different from when this committee saw it 2 years ago. It now includes provisions that if a registrar wishes to adopt a fully electronic system, they must have an identity proofing process that complies with all federal laws to maintain privacy and prevent identity theft. These laws include the Uniform Electronic Transmission Act, the Federal Information Security Management Act, as well as electronic authentication guidelines of the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, known as NIST, which are the most robust e-verification guidelines in existence. Furthermore, the bill requires a multi-layered remote identity proofing process that must meet or exceed the levels of assurance outlined in the NIST guidelines. Verify a valid government-issued ID and verify a valid financial or utility account. So as you can see, this multi-layered verification is much more of a rigorous process than a simple verification, a simple visual inspection of an ID by a notary. The Little Hoover Commission highlighted in a report last year that citizens are increasingly demanding online access to critical government services, and that our vital record requesting process is an area most in need of improvement. AB 2636 will allow California to process vital records in the same secure and efficient manner as the majority of vital records agencies across the nation. So with me to speak more about this, the need for this bill is Dean Logan, the Registrar of Los Angeles County, and Greg Circo, Vice President Vital Records from VitalCheck, and my joint author, Assemblymember Matt DeBobne.
Chairwoman, colleagues, I'd like to thank you for taking the opportunity to take this bill up. Time and time again, I've heard from constituents who are frustrated with long waits, paper applications, and delayed government services. This bill, I believe, is a common-sense way to allow vital records to be processed electronically. And as a member of the Privacy Committee where this bill passed out unanimously, I want to address the claims that this bill exposes people to threats of fraud, and I take those very seriously and look forward to working with this committee to address those concerns. The opposition in that committee brought up a number of worst-case scenarios. We simply have not seen those play out in other states and jurisdictions that allow for this. The National Association of Public Health Statistics and Information Systems, the organization that represents vital records agencies across the county and country, confirmed remote identity proofing is considered a best practice for processing vital records, as they are unaware of a single incident of identity theft or fraud as a result of its use. This bill is not the same bill that you voted on 2 years ago of a similar nature. This difference is that this bill had the opportunity to be vetted by the Assembly Privacy Committee, a committee that did not even exist 2 years ago, and I believe they made this bill a far better in the process. We worked extensively with the committee staff to include the most stringent privacy protections and an absolute highest level of security against identity theft. I will now turn it over to someone that I think is an expert in this field with great experience from Los Angeles County, Dean Logan.
Thank you. Before you begin, I want to be clear, there's a recommended amendment that puts a sunset on this because we're a little unsure of how this is going. Are you accepting that as an author's amendment?
If I can explain for 1 second, we got a note of the amendment this morning, and we didn't have enough a tremendous amount of time. The amendment suggests a 2-year sunset,
Correct.
And the big concern that I have with 2 years is that it realistically takes a significant amount of time to implement a process. Should a county even choose to do so? I say should a county choose to do so because they might not even decide to do this within a year or so. So by the time that this technology has been installed and ready to go, I think that the amount of experience with it would be very, very limited, and it would be very difficult for counties to even consider the investment in it to be worthwhile, and therefore I think it would prove the bill completely meaningless. So, but I want to take the amendment very seriously, and I think that there is room for something like this. We had talked to some of the stakeholders and were thinking about maybe a 5-year sunset date with possibly a 2-year report. But my goal is to.
I'm not happy that we haven't resolved this, but I'll suggest a 2-year report after 2, a sunset after 4. And that's the best I can suggest.
Then I think
4 years, either we fish or cut bait, but I'd like to see some results after 2. A report due after 2 would be acceptable.
I think that's a very fair compromise, and
I do too.
I think we would take.
All right.
Next bill.
Very good. So 2 years for a report, and the report will be consistent with how the bill is doing and all the provisions which are of concern. We did choose not to move this bill forward last year, and has some good parts to it. 2-year report, 4-year sunset.
That's
all
very
right,
generous.
and you'll accept that as
Yeah, I think that's a great.
very good.
It's a great idea.
All right, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Senators. My name is Dean Logan. I'm the Registrar Recorder County Clerk for Los Angeles County. I also serve on the Executive Board for the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, and in both of those capacities, thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today in support of Assembly Bill 2636. AB 2636 will streamline the process of requesting certified copies of vital records by allowing a requester to establish their identity and acknowledge electronically that they are an authorized person. Current law requires a person, when applying online for a certified copy of vital record, to include a notarized affidavit of identity. This requirement is not always convenient for our customers who may not have immediate access to a notary, their identification, or those who are a distance away from their residence, yet have time-sensitive need for documents. This is often the case for members of our armed services serving outside of the United States who need access to their records to complete business or family transactions. The demand for online services is growing, especially in a jurisdiction like Los Angeles County. However, current online requests for vital records cannot be fully completed at the time of submission. This bill will address that current restriction by allowing for the ability to proceed without separately visiting a notary and executing a notarized affidavit, As you've heard, the amendments that were taken in the Assembly and since the last version of the bill have seriously addressed and strengthened the bill to allow a person to establish their identity through multi-layered remote identity proofing process that complies with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Federal Electronic Authentication Guidelines, and with the standards of the Federal Information Security Management Act. Additionally, the bill requires that a record of the applicant whose identity has been verified and the steps that were taken to do that verification be maintained by the county recorder. Importantly, this bill does not provide for the release of vital information or electronic delivery of the vital records online, nor does it require online ordering. It expands the options for the customer, but still requires that all vital records are provided in hard copy and mailed directly to the requester whose identity has been verified. So we see this as an enhancement of customer service, but also recognizing the security concerns and again, on behalf of Los Angeles County and the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, urge a support position.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And Senators, I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. Much of which what I was going to testify about, some of the others have already talked about. The fact that 41 jurisdictions today currently utilize remote identity proofing in an electronic fashion, and that California and Minnesota are the only two states that utilize the notary signed statement form. Over the last 24 years, I've spent almost all my professional time working with vital record agencies throughout the United States and the U.S. territories. We've worked to establish security standards for the release of vital records information, as well as the development of standards that will help support ways in which both consumers and government entities can efficiently process those requests in today's environment. We've worked with NAFSIS, as was talked about, and helped create some security features in things that NAFSIS does, like the ability for DMVs and the Department of Homeland Security and the Transportation Security Administration to be able to validate vital records remotely. What's important between the difference in the way California does it today and the way the other states, or most of the other states do this today, is that the other states are taking advantage of the Federal Information Security Management Act's mandate to the National Institute of Science and Technology to develop standards for the remote release of data online and to protect personal privacy by so doing. What's important to recognize is that this bill, as changed and amended, represents the strictest standards that the National Institute of Safety and Technology, or Standards and Technology, came up with to be able to deal with remote transactions or online transactions. It's what's called level 3 standards. It's the toughest standards that there are to meet. So we're very confident that it will work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. Other witnesses in support? Name and affiliation, please.
Faith Conley with the California Association of Counties. We are a co-sponsor of the bill. We'd urge your support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Julian Voris on behalf of the urban counties of California, also proud to be a co-sponsor and urge your support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Betsy Armstrong with the County Health Executives Association, representing local health departments in support.
Thank you very much.
Kelly Hitt on behalf of the Computing Technology Industry Association in support, and I also like to voice the support of my colleague Andrew DeVoe at TechNet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Langley on behalf of the County of Riverside in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Tamara Lazarus on behalf of the Little Hoover Commission. We're in support.
Thank you. All right, any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon. Becca Kramer on behalf of the ACLU of California. We appreciate the author's attempts both to address some of our concerns and to incorporate technological innovation into the process for accessing state records. However, due to security and privacy concerns that remain with the bill as it has been amended, we must oppose it unless it is amended to better protect individuals from unauthorized disclosure of their sensitive documents. For remote electronic requests, the bill requires a multi-layer remote identity proofing process and calls for 2 forms of authentication, a valid government-issued ID and a financial or utility account number. This authentication protocol on its own is insufficient to protect against identity thieves obtaining sensitive vital records. Many unauthorized individuals, such as a former spouse, either have or can get access to the information needed to pass this level of authentication. I can't tell you how many leases I have signed where my landlord has required my utility account numbers and my driver's license number, meaning that all my former landlords would be able to spoof the system as proposed in this bill to get my vital records, or anyone who was able to break in and get the landlord's records could do the same. This bill is currently drafted, will ultimately mean that Californians' identity will be more easily stolen by identity thieves. Additionally, there isn't any urgent pressing problem around this. The fact is that our armed services overseas have notaries on base, and there's not been a pressing problem that this seeks to resolve, and therefore we urge you not to pass the bill out of committee this time and to hold it to protect Californians' privacy.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Samantha Corbin on behalf of Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, also in opposition for all the reasons my colleague from the ACLU stated. Would like to thank the author. I do know that they've worked pretty extensively to improve the bill. Certainly it's an improvement over various versions. I believe there's been 6 similar pieces of legislation attempted to be passed in California in the last 10 years. It's worth noting that individuals can always request vital records currently without the use of a notary. Those documents, however, are used for informational purposes only and not to establish identity. So the notary requirement only comes when you're looking for a document that can be used for identification purposes, hence the need for additional security. It's questionable, and I believe this touches a bit on what my colleague said, that the need for this bill doesn't outweigh its potential harms. In regard to the need to this measure, there's nothing in current law that prohibits an individual from requesting a certified copy online and then providing a notarized affidavit of identity either also online as a scanned copy or by mail. However, if enacted, the measure does still pose risks. We do still have concerns. For example, even with a sunset, and I know some of the support had mentioned that there's been no documented evidence of this leading to identity theft. However, I would argue that in most instances, none that I'm aware of, and certainly not in this bill, there's no mechanism for individuals who have been victims of identity theft by way of this process to report it. There's no reporting mechanism for them to say, hey, I actually didn't fill out this paperwork. I didn't request my information, someone else did. So where's the tracking mechanism for that? And if someone's identity was to be stolen by way of using this system, who would be liable? There's no remedy for consumers at that point. Also, just with the prevalence now of information available due to multiple large-scale data breaches, for example, like the information used in the IRS hack, it's not just your landlord who may have access to the type of information necessary to authenticate yourself. It may be information that's just available for purchase online. Unfortunately, due to these outstanding concerns, we do remain in opposition, although we do appreciate the committee's suggestion for a sunset amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition? Seeing and hearing none, let's bring it to the committee. We have a motion. I have some concerns, though, that have been articulated. We're seeing all these data breaches. There's concern about information being otherwise available that shouldn't be. Can you respond as to what the protections you have in place against these kinds of very real possibilities?
I'll defer some time to Mr. Logan from LA County.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say just respectfully that I think the issue, and I think this was addressed through the amendments, and we worked for now 2 years on this to address that. And I think the amendments show that the standards through NIST and the other protection agencies have attempted to address that issue. I also want to state, and this was referenced, that in the 36 other states that provide this service, there is no record of identity theft related to this. Now, it was brought up whether that could be tracked. I think if there was a ground in 36 states that have been doing this for quite some time, if there was a significant issue where identity theft, which is a well-known and high-profile issue, was linked back to this method of getting vital records, I think that there would be some pretty clear evidence of that, and I think the standards that we're talking about would reflect that. And as far as the urgency or the need, I will just say, again, respectfully, in LA County, we have great demand for vital records, and people typically, when they need those vital records, they do need them for identification purposes, and they need them quickly. And the current process in California is not a quick process. Even if you could go in and start the transaction online, you have the additional expense, and it is almost the same amount as the vital record itself to go through the process of getting the notary. Then you have to physically get that to us, and then we have to mail you the document. So I think we respect the need for the protection of the physical document. We don't want to transmit vital records electronically, but we do think that there's a good record to show that there's privacy protection to allow for that transaction to take place, and that there is a need for that kind of service.
Also, as was mentioned in testimony by the Mr. Circo, the witness from VitalCheck, he did claim that this was the strongest, most scrutinized system in the country, and he is available here for any details that if you want to question any further details about the
thank you.
scrutiny.
I would like to ask if the ACLU or Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, if you have any known, if from your understanding there are any known data breaches that have occurred and identity theft which has taken place as a result of this information.
So the problem becomes, as I mentioned, that there's no reporting mechanism. And so unlike, as you're familiar with data breach law, of which California has the strongest data breach laws, there's a requirement on businesses to report when they've been breached. But there's not necessarily any way that a county would know if someone had stolen a vital record until an individual had their identity stolen. And how would that individual know where their identity had been stolen from? So I think it's a little misleading to say that there's never been an incident. We just aren't able to document it. And this has been longstanding problem when we're looking at lawsuits for data breaches, right? You have to actually prove the harm, and you have to prove that the information, if there was a harm, came from that particular data breach. Again, I hate to bring up the IRS again, but a lot of that information quite possibly could have come from the Target breach, the Neiman Marcus breach. There was a number of very high-profile breaches, but it's difficult to then go back and litigate and prove that that data came from a particular breach. And so even with robust data breach reporting laws, it's problematic, certainly in a scenario like this where there's actually no burden on the county to track, to report, to provide a complaint mechanism, and perhaps no way someone would even know.
We're going to create that burden by requiring a report within the next 2 years of all that information, should it occur. Thank you. I want to ask your response as far as that goes, with your expertise.
Yes, actually the NIST standard that we're talking about applying to this is really 3 levels, not 2. One level is that you must establish that the name, the address, and at least the name, address, and date of birth of the applicant match current independent data sources. So an ex-spouse may know or may even have a credit card, okay, that's in both names, but that record's going to get sent to an address that is validated as belonging to the applicant. In fact, if you look at the NIST standards and you look at what California does today, NIST has corresponding standards for in-person transactions as if you would go to a notary. And this, at best, what California does meets the 2nd level because there's no validation that that's really a legitimate driver's license that notary may be looking at. So I think that the NIST standard takes into consideration the types of problems that they were talking about.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
I just have a comment, Madam Chair.
Senator Morley.
I think the request to go 5 years was a good one because if you look at the timing of this, we're at the close of this legislative session, and if someone had to do a bill, they better ramp up pretty quick. If you gave them 5 years, they have a better chance of getting it in.
Thank you. Well, we have an agreement. I think 4 is actually, I was thinking about it, might be a little much if we're having problems, but 2 years for a report, 4 years to make sure the system is working. I share a lot of concern about all the hacking and data breaching and everything that's going on, and that's all of our personal information that is critically important to us. So I'm going to support the bill with the understanding we're going to have those reports. I think it's a balance. I don't know if it's a perfect balance. I think there are concerns, but with that report in 2 years, and we'll give you the actual language and go from there. This is, we're seeing all this information out there in the stratosphere, and hopefully we can keep track of it and make sure that it doesn't get misused. With that, Seeing no other comments or questions, if you'd like to close briefly.
Chairwoman, thank you for the work on this bill. It's a better bill now than it was before today. We appreciate that. We will continue to work with the groups that have presented a very reasonable opposition to try to address those concerns. This is a matter of not if, but when, and I think we need to move down the path towards making sure we provide this kind of service to those who want to opt into something like this. But to clarify, this bill, I believe, will have the highest standards of any of the 36 states that already does it in the country, and we will once again lead the way, and hopefully those states will move towards our path towards the greatest consumer protections possible, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. All right, the motion is do pass to Senate Appropriations. Please do pass as amended to Senate Appropriations. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Please call the roll.
Jackson? Aye. Jackson, aye. Morlock? Morlock, aye. Anderson? Hertzberg? Hertzberg, aye. Leno? Monning? Wachowski?
Aye.
Wachowski, aye.
All right, that bill has 4 votes. It is out. We will hold the roll open for absent members. Thank you very much.